The other thing is when you do all that tackle beforehand, you know, you're much more efficient on the water. And that's a huge part of breaking down a lake is being efficient.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. It's a major crunch time here in Nashville as I try to get all the pieces together to be able to fish my first LBAA tournament as a pro. We picked up the new Key West 230 Bay Reef at the manufacturer last week in Ridgeville, South Carolina, and I got to meet the guys, Hutch Holzberg, Mike Marlowe, and Tom Marlowe, and it was an awesome visit. Mike showed us around the factory and how these boats are built from start to finish. They're expanding and building some new spaces, and it was really cool to see. And it was such a cool process. I'm going to feature them on next week's episode, so be sure and stay tuned for that. We got to take the boat out for a little spin while we were there, and let me tell you, with the 250 Yamaha VMAX show, there is no waiting to get that boat up on plane. It takes off like a rocket, so I'm super excited. It's getting rigged up with electronics and such at the dealer here in Nashville now at the Boat Locker, and I can't wait to get it in the water here so I can start learning everything. I mean, talk about a crash course before my first tournament. Seems to be how I like to roll, just like with the new Lance Truck Camper mobile podcast studio, but I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason, and I think that's exactly why my timeline for the studio didn't match up with the universe's timeline, but the universe knows best, and I'm starting to see all the pieces fall into place just like it was supposed to all along. All right, well, I'm thrilled to catch up with Trait Zaldain this week. It's been about a year since I had her on the show. She's had a lot of cool things going on, such as her new episode series, Zaldaingerous, presented by Amazon with her husband, Chris Zaldain. You can watch it on YouTube as well. So we talk about that, her tournament prep process, coming back from injury and what that process has been like. Still got a ways to go there, but pulling for Trait. Hope everything goes well. We also talk about expectations for this season and much more, so I hope you enjoy. Trait Zaldain, welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. I should say welcome back to the podcast.
I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, so the last time we spoke, we were actually in person at the Bassmaster Classic down in Alabama before everything went all haywire and crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. I remember we tucked off in a corner. And
Yep.
Trying to get away from everything. It was a good one though.
Yeah, we were back in a hallway, so it was a little echoey, I think, back there. But I'm glad we got the chance to have you on the show, and I'm excited to catch up and see what all has been going on since then. I know you've had a lot going on, so I'm excited to fill listeners in on that. But in case anybody missed that episode, let's see, that was episode 122, and we're at 174.
Wow.
This will be now. So little over 50 episodes later. But if somebody missed that, can you just fill listeners in on a little bit about yourself, who you are, and your how you got into fishing and all that?
Sure. I'm Trait Zaldain. I'm from Texas. I started fishing when I was a kid with my dad. He fished tournaments around the house, and as I got older, I kind of got interested, but more, post-college than the normal people who, these days at least, have high school fishing and things like that, and college fishing. I think college fishing was just getting going when I was in college. My college didn't have it. And I fished the Bassmaster Opens. And I'm married to an elite angler, so usually people know me from one or the other. And I'm okay with that. I don't get upset when people are like, "Oh, you're Chris Zaldain's wife." Well, yes, that's true too.
Cool. And your big goal is to get in the elites.
Yeah, that's my goal. As I get older, I'm kind of like, wow, this is tough. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
but that's what we want. Our schedule is so hectic with me fishing the opens and him on the elites, and then our other obligations that the older we get, we're like, man, it'd be really nice if we had the same exact fishing tournament schedule. So, but that's my goal. I hope this is the year. I really like the schedule, especially the Northern Opens. And, I don't plan on quitting until I reach that. So I may be fishing the rest of my life in the opens.
Well, yeah, I can't imagine what that lifestyle is like between the two of you, because just fishing one tournament circuit alone is a lot of work and planning and preparation. And then, yeah, all the other obligations that come along with it, doing things for sponsors, and you guys have the Zaldaingerous series. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we started it, the process was started before COVID happened. We were talking about it, and then COVID happened and kind of shut everything down. And we had our buddy Mac, who's worked with Chris before, come out because none of us had anything to do. And we snuck out to the desert and filmed. Chris's family has a place out there. And we filmed out there, and it just kind of happened. And Amazon came on board, wanting to be a part of it. And it just developed from there. So it's just, it's a working formula because we're trying to figure out what people want to watch. And so it shows kind of sometimes behind the scenes lifestyle, and sometimes we try and do how-to things, and sometimes it's tournament coverage. We haven't quite figured out the formula, but we think we're kind of getting closer to it. So that series is going to continue this year. We're dropping stuff on our channel right now, but we're working towards getting the series back going. We're just, everything's been delayed with the late off season. Business stuff it's been ongoing even though the season has started. So expect that to keep going. I hope that people like it. I hope we're not just, the hardest thing we talk about it is most of the series out there, like, it's all about the hero shot and trying to make someone look cool. And we're trying our hardest for it not to be about us. And so it's been a weird, I don't know, progression maybe is the word, but we really want it to be about fishing and everyone in fishing, and not trying to make us look like, Billy Badass.
Well, yeah. I've watched a few episodes, and I like how it's just, you're just kind of, you show all of it. I mean, you show how tough it can be too. And I think that's important, because a lot of what's put out there is like the highlights and, the successes. And so you don't want to paint a picture of, That's always been my struggle with social media. I've taken some time off from social media over the last few months, and I have got a bunch of nieces and nephews that are teenagers and in their early 20s, and I absolutely hate what social media has become, and it's been a highlight reel of these perfect lives and perfect relationships, and it's setting our kids up for failure because they think, oh, well, I'm in this relationship and it's not perfect like that, or I'm in this career path and it doesn't look like that one. And I struggle with it huge. It like eats at me. Yeah. And so that's kind of our agreement, like we just need to, however it happens, we need to show it. And hopefully we're doing that, and hopefully we get better at that. We had some time constraints last year. We were only allowed, or not allowed, but we were told, to keep it to 15 minutes. And that was tough, to tell a story in 15 minutes. But this year we've got the ability to make longer episodes, so that helps us tell more. Good. Well, I wanted to touch on, so we're talking about that series and kind of showing the good, the bad, the ugly, all that, So last year you struggled with injury, and how's that going?
Yeah, so it's been it's also part of the reason I took some time away from social media. It's been a process. I've been seeing doctors since November, and it's been pretty stressful. We've been worried, to say the least, on some stuff, but we seem to actually last week get more of a clear idea of what's going on. I've had several MRIs, so I'm still physically not in the best place. I'm going to have surgery, and I'm going to try and put that off to the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And over the next 2 weeks, I've got a test in this week on something that the MRI found, and then to see what's going on there. And then the following week, I'm going to start like a program to try and figure out if we can manage this and buy me some time so I can fish. I don't know that the doctor's thrilled about that. but
priorities, right?
Priorities. I just, for me, I can't imagine not at least starting this season and trying to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a doctor, they're like, that sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I mean, if it's not going to hurt me any further, then
right.
For me, it's like, why not?
And where does the season start for you?
So I'm not fishing the Southern Opens. This is the first year in a while I'm not fishing them all. I'm taking the Southern Opens off because just the way they front loaded the schedule, it was next near impossible for us to meet our obligations with some sponsors, from a content side and also fish tournaments, right? So my first one's the Central Open, which is Lewis Smith Lake, and that's the last week of March.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. It should be fun. Should be some, spawning spots, which I don't have a ton of experience with spawning spots, but I have been on Lewis Smith a couple of times. So
good. So for me, I'm kind of jumping in with both feet, fishing these the LBAA tournaments with as a boater for the first time. This will be my first time ever being a fishing tournament as a boater. So
that's awesome.
What's your preparation process like when you're getting ready for a tournament?
Yeah, so I mean, the past couple of years, our process has kind of gotten thrown out the window because it's such mayhem because we're back to back to back. But for me, I'm OCD, so a big part of my process is just making sure that my boat and everything is done ahead of time for the tournament. That usually plays a huge part in how I fish. If I've taken the time to prepare my tackle, and that's rigging everything that could happen. There's sometimes I'll get lazy and just rig, so many rods, and then the bite will change and I'm not prepared. And then I'm piecing together things in the boat and they're not quite what they need to be. And then I'm losing fish because, my setups aren't correct. Right. So the other thing is when you do all that tackle beforehand, you're much more efficient on the water. And that's a huge part of breaking down a lake, is being efficient. And that's really, when it comes to a process, I mean, I guess I don't have anything terribly crazy. I also, food is a big part of my process. So making sure that Sunday before practice starts, that I've got everything for lunches and dinners, because I love my husband, but he's not the spouse that takes care of that during my tournament week.
Gotcha.
So that's also preparation so that I can stay on the water all day and not worry about like having to go to a restaurant, when it's done, just making sure everything I'm going to need for that week is done by that Sunday before practice starts.
How many days of practice are you usually able to get in before the tournament?
I usually just do the 2.5 days. Sometimes I get Sunday, but these last few years it's been rare because usually we're coming from another tournament. And that's what's kind of sucked, you'll see, especially in the opens, which I don't think I'll ever be this person, but a lot of the guys who qualify are there for 8-9 days ahead of time. And a lot of people will tell you, you're not going to get qualified unless you do it that way. I don't know that I'm that type of person because I've got so much other things going on that mean a lot to me that I don't, maybe I don't know if it's a commitment thing. I hope not. I would like to say I'm very much committed to the opens, but I don't see myself fishing that far ahead because the bite changes so quick in the open. And if you're there, 9 days ahead of time, I've tried some of the longer practices, then you get this history from a week and a half ago, and then your conditions are completely different. Weather change, they suck the water down, all sorts of things can happen. And then you're thinking about what you found 9 days ago instead of what's happening right then and there. So I prefer a shorter practice, but that's just my style. It forces me to be more in the moment and adapting than going off of history, which I think for me is better. But obviously the way I need to do it is not the same for everyone.
Right. Yeah, everybody's got their own preferences and style, but I think about that too. It seems like, I think to me, the biggest thing, especially as a boater going into the season, is getting familiar with the lake and, finding spots. So you can be like, okay, the fish are doing this today. I remember seeing this spot over here, let's go try that kind of a thing.
Yeah. That's what, I think it was Ish Monroe who told me the first day of practice, you should just drive around the lake. Don't pull a rod out. Just drive around the whole place and see what it has to offer, how it sets up, what the water looks like in different areas, and then go from there. Because you at least then know what you're dealing with when things change.
Right. Yeah, and it's cool now too, because with technology these days, like you can pull up Google Earth and really get a good idea for these different bodies of water before you even ever get on the water there. And so that's part of my plan as well, is to really study that stuff.
Yeah, so that's something I've always been like a nerd. I guess that's part of my preparation too. I sit like yesterday, I was working on terminal tackle that I've amassed through the years in a big old bowl, just like weeding through it. And then I set the rest of the day when I wasn't doing that on my iPad looking at Humminbird, has, their Lake Master app. And I sit on that a lot. When I'm not on the water, I'm probably sitting on that app, and it's kind of like the Google Earth thing, You're able to get an understanding of how portions of the lake set up, and that's a huge thing to understand as much as you can before you go in that tournament. And the people who succeed nowadays, most of them do a ton of research, and they've read all the latest interviews and watched all the shows from the past and got on Google Earth and went through the history of Google Earth, when the lake was in a drought and things like that. And that is a big part of it. And it's something, I probably should do more, I feel like I do a lot, but I could be a lot better at it. I used to do a lot of it when I first started fishing the opens, and then I kind of backed off. And, it is a big key to the guys you see that are successful. Chris, he's really good at it. And, technology has really changed things, and the access to information.
Definitely. Big time. I think back to the days I've interviewed a couple ladies on the show that used to fish with the Bass and Gals back in the day. And I always like to ask them, what was it like? Like they didn't have the lake map, like they had paper maps, flashers. Like literally, Yeah. And I'm like, I just can't imagine, but they got out there and they did it, and they got stories to tell too.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. I can only imagine, especially from a navigation standpoint,
Yep. One lady told me, I forget what lake it was. It was one of the ones that has trees like everywhere. And the local people before their tournament had gone out and like tied ribbons around certain trees to kind of show them the route to get out, It's like crazy.
I had that, last year, the year before. I was going on one lake to super like just not known spot, very local. It's like a crappie hole in the back of nowhere. And to get back there were ribbons that I had found in practice that someone had used to mark the lane. And the best part, whoever it was or someone else came through. So I practiced before, it was like maybe the Monday, and then I didn't go back. And then by the tournament, those ribbons were like bright. And whoever that was who decided to remark the lanes, shout out to you. They probably have no clue.
Right.
You know, they probably don't give a rip about bass fishing, but I thought, you know, I remember going through there day one. I was like, oh, this is nice. I can actually see the ribbons.
Awesome. How many rods do you typically prepare?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot. Yeah, that's what I was, just before we hopped on this call, I was talking to our camera guy, Johnny, and I was like, dude, I think I got to build an Excel for my list this time.
Yeah.
This year's a little different. Like I'm trying to, because I kind of know how the opens always end up playing from a consistent standpoint. And there's a few things that always play in the opens outside of smallmouth tournaments. And so my plan this year is to kind of minimize my tackle and to keep most of the same rods tied, the entire season, just to help me also, so I'm able to prepare better with the time crunch that we see. And I'm hoping, you know, outside of like some color swaps, I'll just be freshening the line more than anything. And, I probably got 25 rods.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a mess, you know, but also like it's part of that efficiency thing of, it's much easier to cover water when you're prepared for that bite shift.
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
So and so that's what I've been working on this off season, is trying to figure out how to make that easier, because last year we had so many back to packs. It was nuts. And it really opened my eyes that there's got to be an easier way than how I'm doing it. So hopefully I figured that out this year, but probably not.
It's always a learning process.
Yes. 24/7.
Yep. How many tournaments are you fishing this year?
So I'm fishing all the Central Opens and all the Northern Opens, and then the U.S. Open, which is put on by One Bass out in Vegas. So 7, you know, I don't know what, you know, fairly big tournaments. And then Chris has his 11 or 12. And then we have a big content schedule this year. So this is pretty packed. I think we have like 4.5 or 5 months straight of tournaments. Wow. When you combine them all. And that doesn't include travel days, just practice and the actual tournament. And then our deliverables from a content standpoint. Right. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. When people hear what you do or whatever, they're like, oh, that's so much fun. You're so lucky. It's stressful.
Yeah. We're super blessed. Like, we get to fish for a living, and we get to make a living allowing us to do what most people like plan to do in their retirement. Right.
Right.
But, there's also a lot to it, you know?
Yes.
So.
I am finding that out day by day as well. Okay. So one other thing I wanted to touch on, new puppy. Talk about that.
Oh yeah. Michi. So I've been wanting, when me and Chris started dating 10 years ago, I had a dog, and she passed away, I guess before we got married, or maybe when we first got married. It's been a few years now. And I've been wanting, we have Nebo, which is a boy dog, but I've been wanting another girl dog so bad, 'cause they're just different than boy dogs, you know, much more cuddly. And Chris basically was like, okay, you can get one, but it's got to be a Belgian Malinois. I had no clue what those were.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, me either at the time. So I didn't do the research. I was just like, deal. Like, let's find one, you know. And so there was kind of, I don't advertise this, but we did the whole Craigslist thing. And we met some people, and they had, they brought their girls, and I fell in love with one of them, and she is a mess, absolute mess. They are basically a breed that are used for like, cops and gas line leak detection. Very smart. Like one of the top when I took her to the vet told me it's, from the vet's perspective, the smartest breed on earth.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what have I got myself into? Angie, I kid you not, this dog is so smart. It's like frustrating. Like there's getting nothing past her, even at the puppy stage.
Oh, wow.
But she's a blast, full of energy though. We work with her and a trainer. We have a trainer that comes by once a week.
Okay.
And even he's just like, she is smart. And it's crazy what she can do. You know, I think she's 5 months now. And she knows, you know, your basics, your sits. We can tell her to place somewhere and she'll hop up there. You tell her to stay, she stays. And she's also a very cuddly, sweet dog. It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have
oh my gosh, she just walked up here.
Oh, she knew you were talking about her.
Uh-huh.
So I have a question because I've always had this theory. I've been blessed to have very smart dogs in my life, and I've noticed that the smarter ones, and I think I searched this once, but I can't really remember. The smarter ones have like a little bump on their head. Does she have
Do you have an egghead? Come here. Yeah, she's got an egghead.
There you
That's
go.
fun. And
okay.
My other dog that passed away, she had I called her an egghead. She had a bump on her head too.
Was she
funny.
smart?
She was.
Okay. All right. Well, that confirms my theory. The flatter head ones seem to be not quite.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, anything else that you want to touch on?
I just wish you good luck. You know,
Thank you.
It's pretty cool. You're hopping into the boater seat. You know,
it
probably are going to surprise yourself. You'll do really well, and
it'll be interesting.
Don't be worried about what you're probably not. You know, but as soon as you get out there, you're going to be like, oh, this was not that big of, like I should have done this sooner.
Right. Yeah. I've been thinking about it. And as far as like practice days and stuff, you know, sometimes it's nice just to be able to go out there by yourself, not have to worry about anybody else or, you know, making anybody else happy or whatever. And just kind of just really just be in the moment and figure stuff out in your own head, you know, so I'm looking forward to
that's one of my favorite things about fishing and is I'm a loner. I like my alone time. I'm like a hermit. Like the people in our neighborhood crack up because I like when I'm home I never come out. You know, I'm just like I'm weird. I'm a nerd. I like to read books and stuff, and that's what really pulled me into fishing the most was I can be on the boat by myself, and I absolutely love it. I love figuring it out by myself. That's just like a huge part of it for me is my alone time on the boat. I love it. And so I get that, you know, not relying on someone else and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I catch more fish than two.
Yep. So you're able to develop, like it's good to learn behind someone, you know, that foundation, but you get to a certain point where you have to be able to figure things out on your own. And the only way to really do that is to be out there alone.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I would love to catch up with you again at the end of the season and just kind of see how everything went. And I hope it goes well. I hope everything goes well with your recovery from injury and all of that. And we will definitely stay in touch. All right. Well, thanks.
All right, thanks, Angie.
Thanks so much. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to check out Zaldaingerous, presented by Amazon on Amazon or YouTube. And stay tuned for next week's episode. We talk about the unsinkable Key West boats with the team at the Key West headquarters in Ridgeville, South Carolina, and the new 230 Bay Reef. I can't wait. See you next week.